So these are the walks that we worked on. The the last stream we were working on the Zelda walk. Stream before that we were doing the Link walk here, and both of these I would say are about, trying to think like without doing the demos and stuff, maybe 2 or 3 hours worth of work. So maybe 4 or 5 hours total on both of these. Which the reason I like to count that this is for my own purposes, is when I first started animating, it took me 2 weeks to do one walk. Even if you go back before that, when I was first in class 1, it took me 2 weeks to get a walk where I was given all the instructions on how to do everything. And I still didn't do a great job at it. There were so many issues. And now I've animated these 2 totally different walks in about 5 hours. So for any of you who are just starting out, the reason I want to bring this up is that you will get faster. Speed comes with practice. That's pretty much it. Don't worry about trying to speed up your workflow at the beginning. You will get faster. Instead, focus on making sure your workflow is correct and makes sense, and that you're doing correct decisions. If you're working extremely fast, but if you're making a lot of mistakes along the way, you're just gonna slow yourself down in the end anyway. Or if the end product isn't of a good quality, it's not gonna matter as much in the end, because you're gonna have to redo a lot of stuff. Sure, you worked fast, but you're gonna have to fix more things. So instead, don't worry about speed. Speed comes naturally. Instead, focus on understanding. That once you have that understanding, everything else comes in naturally, like speed, just kind of being able to do it without having to think of every single step all the time. For who's starting, there's hope. The main reason I want to mention this is every time I do some of these demos, I have a couple of people who message me and go, I'm kind of depressed, and I feel like I'm failing as an artist because I'm so slow, and I see everyone else who's animating, and they're doing like this amazing 2-character acting shot, and I'm struggling with a walk cycle, and it hurts. I've been there. You look at your assignment and you're doing a walk cycle, for example, since we're looking at this, and then you look to the next student and they're doing a 2-character dialogue shot where both characters are walking and they're talking and they're acting and they're doing all of this, and they get a lot of that done in the same time that you're trying to get a walk that's 24 frames long working. That is totally normal. Hey, NSVille, thank you so much for the subscription. Oh man, thank you so much. Gotta do the dance. You know, I was thinking of getting a standing desk just so I could do the dance properly. That is also good for your health, but I want to be able to do that dance. Lost my train of thought. Yeah, so when I was starting, I was slow. I was a very slow animator. I would work, when I was in class 1, I would animate every single day at the time I wasn't working. So I could just really dedicate my time to Animation Mentor, and I was just like animating every day, working on my assignments. And it took me forever. And it still didn't turn out perfectly. Now, I had a lot of time to really focus on it. And even then, it still didn't turn out perfectly. That's fine. You're learning. And like I said, you will get faster. When I was in class, I would look at class 5 students who are doing like dialogue shots, 2 people, and it's like, I'm struggling with a bouncing ball. I remember this very clearly. There was a time when I was working on it was a 2-ball bounce assignment. I was looking at other students, it's like, I'm struggling with this bouncing ball assignment, and they're doing character shots with acting, and how the heck am I gonna get there? Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to finish this course and actually be able to graduate. I just don't see it. And then in class 5 later on, I was working on my assignment. I think it was like week 4 or 5 in the term. So partway through the term, I was working on the shot, animating the face and posing the characters, and I suddenly just had this moment where I'm animating, I hit a play blast, and it's like, it just hit me. I used to think I couldn't do this. And I had this moment where I had to look back and think, how did I get here? And I just kind of retrace all my steps and wait, okay. I had the bouncing ball, and then a bunch of stuff happened, and now I'm here. And it was an interesting moment for me because I was suddenly doing something that I never thought at some point in time I never thought would have been possible, and I didn't even realize that it had happened until halfway through doing it. So just keep in mind, it might not seem possible right now. It might seem like you're looking at your current skills and you look at what you want to be able to do and it's like, how will I ever get there? As long as you approach the learning properly, as long as you kind of build up your foundation, learn those body mechanics, learn the principles of animation, you just slowly build. It takes time, but you slowly build things up. And to be fair, Animation Mentor is an 18-month course. That is super quick when you think about it. To go from, for me, 0 animation skill to being able to animate characters in a year and a half. That is not a long time. But it worked. And it's just really focusing on those few little things, and then suddenly you'll have the skills you need to put it all together and make an acting piece. So, a little bit of an aside, a little bit of a rant there. I got distracted right from the start, right into a tangent. Oh, you made your first bouncing ball? Nice. That's awesome. And Skolas, yes, I should drink some water. I've got my water right here. I'm going to be trying to stay more hydrated in these Q&As, or streams, I should say. Abramation, hello! I remember when it took Bo a week to do a simple ball bounce. Yes, it took me... The very first ball bounce took a week, and it wasn't a good one. The first proper ball bounce took me 2 weeks. 1 week to actually animate it, and then another to polish it up. 2 weeks for a ball bounce, which now I could do a better ball bounce in probably 5 minutes. Literally 5 minutes. Not just fast. No, actually 5 minutes to do the exact same or better ball bounce. So your skills will improve vastly, and your speed will improve. So, back to the walk. Drag myself back onto this thing that I wanted to show. So, these are the walks we've worked on so far. Now, there's a lot of polishy bits that we need to add in here. So, for example, you'll notice Link's tunic is cutting into his legs, little things like that. But there's a lot of things we also need to fix. So, what I did before the stream was I just play blasted the walks here from these different angles, and then I just wrote down a list. I've mentioned this before, but whenever I'm doing these kinds of animation or any animation, and I need to know, like, what do I do next? I just write a list of everything that I can see that isn't working or that I want to add. Now, this is not my polish list. This is just the fixing list. Ooh, quick question. Do you have the Anibot demo you did? A friend started using it and I wanted to share it. I can upload it today for you. Let me put it on my to-do list. So I'm making a more concerted effort to start uploading old demos. Just this morning, I uploaded 3 demos, which is on facial animation for anyone who's interested. They'll be posted later on. They're still kind of encoding on Twitch. But it's going to be the Moana walk, or the Moana animation analysis I did, which we did a lot of facial analysis near the last end of that. And then also the 2 facial streams we did afterwards on how to polish up a face. So those are going to be uploaded probably sometime today, and I'll add the Animbot one to that as well. I don't upload them to YouTube just because it requires a lot more editing. With YouTube or with Twitch, they're more relaxed on what music you can use, so I can use video game music, stuff like that, which I like. It inspires me to work. But on YouTube, I would have to edit out all the music, which I do save everything out on a separate channel, so that's not a hard thing. But it means editing out the music and then probably adding something else so that it's not super silent. And then re-encoding it, then re-uploading it. So it's this long process just to get one upload back up, which in that case, I'd probably need an editor just to help me with that. For example, if you go to videos here, I'm going to clean this up probably today as well because I don't like the way it's organized by default. Also, I have to update some of these thumbnails because Twitch likes to get thumbnails of me with my eyes closed. I don't know why. Like, look, that's 3 of them right there. 1, 2, 3, all with the eyes closed. Nope, 4. Oh no, that's the same one. Okay, 3. It's like, do I blink that often? But if you just go to the videos tab here, I have Maya demos, so if you're interested in rendering, there's some demos there, how to lock elbows onto a surface. Eventually, if I do ever get some time, I want to edit these down to like actual demo bits, like size-wise, so you don't have to watch a 3-hour stream on something. To be fair, you can also watch it on two times speed, which is very helpful because my distractions get much shorter in those. Yeah, it's going to be in there. I'm probably going to do an animation section in here as well as analysis section in here. That way you can put in or you can see all the different sections and easily get to things. So we're going to build it up. That's my goal for the next few months. Hey, yeah, and your animation is there. Right there. So let's see. Let me catch up with the chat here. Now, eventually I do want to make a YouTube channel as well, but until I have time to edit, encode, and find out the whole process that I want to do with those, it's just too much of a hassle. Or sorry, not I wouldn't mind doing it. It's more of a time sink that I just don't have the ability to do. I watched your Connections and Nodes demo and it was really helpful. I rigged a trampoline for class 1. Nice! That's awesome! Hope I can still ask for my 3rd bouncing ball now. Crazy how the view changed. When I showed the first one, I thought it was a decent, and looking back at it, it was horrible. The only thing I would change about this one would make the 38th frame a little bit more like 41. Okay, yeah, we can definitely take a look at that. I'll finish some talking about the walk, and then we'll jump into that first. That way, you don't have to wait the whole stream. Is the process of you making these walks you're showing now on Twitch? Yeah, so that's if you go into the videos here, recent broadcasts. So these last 2 right here, the one with the eyes closed, and then this one. That's the whole process for both rigs. You're always sleeping. I sleep in the streams. Every time I blink is a micro nap, and then I'm back awake. That's why I don't have to sleep at night. These big Twitch streamers that just release 6 hours of very monetized, safe, usable, royalty-free music. That would be awesome. I have thought of doing that as well, of just using royalty-free music. But at the same time, and this might be a question for you guys because you're the ones who have to listen to the streams. I can listen to whatever I want in my headsets. But as you're listening to the streams, is it helpful for you to see what inspires me? So for example, when I'm working, I specifically listen to video game music because it helps me animate. I'm not just listening to this because I like it. I do love it, video game music. But it is specifically there because most of the time it helps me to work better. It helps me concentrate. Now, is that helpful for you guys to kind of experience that? Or would you rather just have, like, I'm using this term not in a bad way, but generic music, like royalty-free. It's not from any games, it's not from movies, not from soundtracks, just royalty-free music just to fill in the dead air. Nice music, of course, but something that that is different. Because worst case scenario, if it doesn't help me work, I can always listen to video game music on my headphones, and you guys can listen to other music. I can set it up like that. Let's see. You need help for your future YouTube channel? I'm available. That would be awesome if I could get even just like a few editors. That way I don't want to overload a bunch of people. I also want to make sure that if I do get editors, I do it properly. I want to make a proper production out of it. And what I mean by production is I am not a fan of, hey, work for me and I'll give you exposure. Yeah, free work, but you'll get recognized. Woo! No, if I would want to find some way of giving back to whoever's editing for me. So that's another process that I have to dive into when that comes up. Let's see, I just meant for YouTube videos, if you ever took those on. I listen to video game music too. Yeah, so if I did do YouTube videos, I would just replace the music with some just a nice playlist of ambient music, or more likely I would cut it down and just have like very specific music clips. I need some Dragon Quest music. Oh, Dragon Quest music is so good. Death metal? I listen to Sabaton once in a while. So not death metal, but what is it called? Power metal, I think they call it. So we could listen to that. That would be a little bit more of a extreme stream. Although my hair's growing long enough, I could start doing the head banging and actually get the hair whipping across. That would be interesting. You could make some ASMR videos. Just speak very quietly. Bring the mic right up to my mouth. There we go. Nice, quiet. I need that Bob Ross voice. Like, just talk very quietly. Happy little accidents at a happy little tree. Just talking nice and quietly the whole time. And hey, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome aboard. And Dingy Tooth, hello. Our soft listen to Ponyo music. Oh man, that's awesome. I used to listen to like piano versions of Disney and Ghibli music, or jazz remixes of them all, but I'm always afraid, especially with Disney stuff, that it'll get kind of copyright struck, even if it's not the original artist. So video game stuff is kind of a little bit more lenient. I'm asking one thing, be my mentor. I was kind of semi-professional editor. I was working on my own campaign for 2 years until I discovered animation. If I had time, I've been thinking of trying to open up like a mentorship type thing, like just not a true mentor, like a animation mentor type thing, but just like to help people who can't afford to go into a big school, just to kind of give little workshops that you can use to get started, ways to push you in the right direction. But it's time. That's the main thing I'm missing right now, is time. I've got a lot of ideas, just not the time to put them into play. But this is where one of my other goals of this year is I want to start delegating more, which is something I've always had trouble with. Every time it's got to be me. I've got to do it all. And I want to start delegating so that I can not only work on new things, but help other people like do things that they want to do, because other people want to try these kind of things too, so that we can all kind of work together to build something even bigger than what one person can do alone. So yes, delegating is like water, sleep, delegating. Those three things are the things I am not so great at. Although I've got water, I've been getting my 7 to 8 hours of sleep so far this week, which is surprising. Even like I was surprised when I look back. It's like, wow, I actually slept. I'm holding it. I'll just, oh, and then wait, oh, and then this. Never actually get it into my mouth. Let's see. Teach me, Master Bo. Bo's army, like Dumbledore's army. The army of the sleepless. Everyone has rings under their eyes from staying up too late. I'm always up for helping out. That's awesome. I definitely need to make a list of everything that I should delegate and everyone or other projects that I want to bring other people on so that we can just get things rolling. It's not so much trusting other people. I have a lot of and this is just me. I'm very lucky. I have a lot of people that I can trust. That I really trust, and I know will do an amazing job. It's more learning to let go, and not in the sense that I need to do it myself. I want to have my name in bold. Like it's nothing like that. It's more that I just I don't even know how to put it into words. Like when I'm working on a project, I feel like I have to finish it because I started it. And if I give it to someone, that would be like neglecting my duty and just kind of throwing my work onto other people, which I'm not a fan of. For example, if I'm it would be like trying to I don't know, like let's say I'm making dinner. I get halfway through cooking and going, I'm done, someone else can finish this for me. It's kind of that feeling, which I know is not the right kind of feeling, but it's the thing that automatically comes to my head is, oh, I didn't finish the project, or I took on too much and now I'm forcing someone else to have to help me. And that is even like saying it, it's like that's totally wrong. That's not the point. Or else if everyone had that mentality, Walt Disney would have never made a company, and like anyone wouldn't have been able to make anything because you need help. You're already calling yourself and you still have too much to do. Exactly. This song always plays whenever I listen to Rainwave, and I love it. I don't know why, it's just weird enough. It also helps if the other people have a personal stake in the project. Yeah. And that's the thing I'm very lucky with, is I know that a lot of people that would help out would have a personal sorry, a personal stake. The reason I laughed is there's an ant crawling on my screen. Come on. Off the screen. Off the screen there. Sorry, I'm almost there. There you go. Got a little ant. I don't even know if you can see it. Is it gonna focus? There you go. You can just see that little black dot on my finger. My little friend. Aw, it's adorable. Be free. Nope, don't crawl. It's going up the wrong direction, going up my arm. There you go, creature reference, exactly. At least it's not the angry bee this time. Sorry, I got distracted again. It was like right in the middle of my screen as I turned. It's just like right there. It's like there. Oh no, it's on my phone now, actually. It's just having a little romp. Oh, and it's cleaning itself. Cleaning its little antennae. Feelers. His ants. My army of ants! I am the Ant-Man! So... Antatui. Man. This chat is awesome. Ooh, I have a question. I had an issue with constraints while doing homework. It took hours. I had to make a constraint switch with 3 different parent constraints and then animate the object, and it didn't work. The new key jumped back to its previous point every time I moved it to the timeline. Sure. If you can describe exactly what you're trying to go for, just let me know. And then I can see about trying to figure out how to set that up for you. So before I get totally distracted again, I want to just finish up my thoughts on the walk here. Then we'll go over the bouncing ball, and then we might do that demo, and then get back to the walk here. The most funny stream ever. Well, I'm glad that it's funny. I used to have a pet fly. Cameron and I found a fly. I guess it got hurt or couldn't fly anymore, and we kept it for 3 days until I guess it died of old age, because we just couldn't kill it. And yeah, we're not good at killing things. The only thing is mosquitoes, because they bite. Mosquitoes are the one thing where it's like, although if they're outside, I'd rather just shoo them away. Oh, interesting. That's interesting. I knew you could help a bee with honey. Just give it a little bit of honey, and then that'll help get it back on its feet, or sugar water. But interesting that a fly can be brought back with salt. No, it didn't have a little leash, but it had a little box, and that we'd bring it around the house so that it couldn't fly, so it just kind of walk around everywhere. So we just walk it around the house. Did you name it? I think we did. I can't remember what we had named it. It started with a B, I think. It was a silly name. So let me finish my thoughts here before I get distracted on a whole other adventure and start going over Bat Pratt, the pet bat we had, and we rescued. So for this walk, I did some play blasts, and I just played them back, and I made a list of everything I need to fix on these or add, or things that were missing. So in the end, I got about 26 different things. This is for both walks. 26 different things that are wrong or broken or missing. 26 issues. These are not the things that need to be added in. So for example, the hair, the cloth, things like that. This is just things that need to be fixed. And what I did was I just wrote them all down as I saw them. Then I numbered them. So I have one for Link, one for Zelda. I numbered them on which I need to fix first. I've mentioned this before in the past, but this is a very important step. Because if I just took this list, like you can see it's from here all the way down. That's my list of all the different items. It fills the whole 2 pages here. And sometimes I would have like a full sheet of paper, like a full 8x10 or 8x11 sheet of paper that is just filled with notes. So what I do is I number them, because if you just start picking them at random, you might start fixing things and just like bouncing around randomly, which is not good for production and for like productivity. The other thing is that you might fix something. For example, let's say I have to fix the arm, which is something I have to fix in here. I fix the arm, but then I also have to fix the chest. Well, if I change the chest, that changes the arm. So I've just fixed something only to have to probably refix it later, which is a waste. So I number these so that I know exactly which things I need to fix first, which will affect others. And then I can slowly work my way through the shot without having to redo any work. The other thing I like to with the list method is it avoids over play blasting, where I might fix one thing and then play blast. Did I fix it? Oh no, not quite. Noodle. Did I fix it? Play blast. Okay, let's move on to something else. And play blast and play blast and play blast. With this, I most likely won't create a play blast until I'm done the whole list. At least on one character at least. At which point I would make a new list. And what this does is it helps avoid over play blasting, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but if you consider the time it takes to make a play blast, even if it takes, let's say for a big shot, 30 seconds, that's not much time, but you play blast twice, well, that's a minute. If you're play blasting after every little thing you do, you might do 10-20 play blasts in an hour, maybe. Well, if you do 20 play blasts in an hour, you've just wasted basically 10 minutes ish. That's a lot of time that you're just sitting there waiting for a play blast to finish. So it's not necessarily, you don't need to do that, but at least for me it helps me just kind of keep into that animation mindset versus constantly being pulled out of it. So yeah, let's see, I started taking my notes this week and it makes such a difference. Yes, when I started it, I was amazed by the difference it makes. Highly recommend it. I'm glad it was working out for you. So with that, let's jump into the ball bounce here, and then we'll go over that constraint demo and then jump into the polishing here, because I don't want to keep people waiting with questions. So let's take a look here. Oh yeah, that's feeling much better already. Way better. So I think one thing I would tweak right here is I think you could ease the this motion a little bit more. So right now try to push your spacing just a little bit more. I'm going to exaggerate this here. So it eases out into that point there. So you just get a little bit of an ease out, hit that point, and then I would add one more frame right in here where it comes back down. So you'll have up here and then just the tiniest ease back the other way, and then pop it down here. What that's going to do is give that kind of natural change of direction, almost a little hold, but it throws itself downwards. Right now, because it goes up fast and then bounces down faster, it gives the feeling that someone's hitting it down. So that extra little frame, just one frame of a slight change of direction, is going to help give that impact in there. So squashes down, good stretch. Here, watch your spacing at the top. So this is where the scaling the ball is always tricky. As it comes up, you'll notice that the spacing kind of drops down and then back up. So watch the spacing at the very top of the sphere. Make sure that's the one that is feeling correct. So your spacing right now might actually be absolutely correct from the center of the sphere, but visually, we want to make sure that it's the silhouette that works best. And specifically, since it's coming to a stop at the top, we want that silhouette at the top to feel correct. So just watch right there. Now, as it pulls back here, you're starting to stretch the ball out back here. So it's stretching. And then it stops stretching and then starts again. So just double check your scale. It kind of feels like the curve is doing this right as it's starting to come down. There's a little wiggle in there, tiny little thing. Now it comes down. Okay. Now you're saying only frame 41 to 40 on 38, then I like. Okay. So here, to really sell this impact, keep in mind that the spacing of the ball, almost imagine that the ball has two different points on it. So right now you've got the point that's coming down. So we'll do this in different shapes. So you have a triangle up here and a circle down there. So like this and like this. And both of these have their own spacing. So as the circle, the bottom, goes and hits the ground, it suddenly stops. It hits the ground and poof, it impacts. Well, the top of the ball doesn't know that it's hit the ground yet. So that top of the sphere here, as it hits right in here, it's not going to ease right away. It's going to keep traveling and most likely trying to go as fast as it did the previous frame, because it doesn't know they've hit ground yet. So instead of being there, if your spacing is kind of going this far, then it would at least probably be about here. I should do this in a different color. Right around here. So your sphere would already be kind of squashing down right here and then slowing down from there. So in much fewer frames, you could squash this down quite a bit. And what that gives is that feeling that that the weight is being pushed all the way through. And this is the same thing of if you have a pendulum swinging and the top of the pendulum stops, what causes the rest of it to swing and not just kind of come to a stop and freeze is the fact that it just wants to keep going at the same speed. It's trying to go through and trying to keep that momentum that the base had built up into it. With any object, even a human body, when we land, for example, and our feet hit the ground, the rest of our body still wants to keep traveling. Now, there's extra resistance on there. We've got knees, our hips, all of that, our muscles. But our body is still trying to move at that same speed. So when we land, for example. So as animators, what we need to do is take into account all of that momentum and try to make it feel like they're not just stopping, but instead that weight is being pushed through and that the character is catching themselves with their legs and their knees and their muscles and all of that. And then you can go into the settle that you have. And yeah, I think those would be my main notes. It's really a little bit of that anticipation, watching the spacing at the top. There's just a little pop in there. And then the landing, just watching that top. Again, the spacing along the top of it. Make sure that it doesn't slow down too soon. It should just kind of keep trying to go into the ground until it basically is no longer able to. So yeah, those would be my main notes for you. Hopefully that helps. Let's see. And if you have any questions on that, definitely let me know. Now, while that you're typing there, let me find Shiri's note here. Okay. So the pedal was first attached to the rig and then to the hand. Oh no. My ant friend has a friend. Uh-oh. The ant invasion has begun. I just saw him walk along the wall right behind the camera. Uh-oh. What have I done? I let one live, and now they've taken over. They've taken advantage of my kindness. You'll just see me get swarmed by ants. Okay, so the pedal was attached to the rig. Then you have it to the hand, and then you let go. Okay. So, Brad Dad with a flamethrower just comes in, flames everywhere. So big ant party on your phone. Yeah. Just watch. If it gets to me drinking some water and then is there over here, that's when I'm gonna freak out. I've had that happen once before. It's not fun. Spitting out ants. So in this situation, let's close this. Go to Maya. And actually, let me draw this out here. I love Mega Man music. I've never really played a Mega Man game, but I really do love their music. Send you a picture of the graph editor on Discord. It often doesn't look as smooth as the ones you had for the Zelda animation with a flip in it. These graph editors don't have to be smooth. This is one of the big things. Let me open it up here while Maya is opening, or sorry, while Clip Studio is opening. Graph editors, for some things they will be smooth, for others they will not. So let's see here. So for example, your looks like this is the scale, maybe not. it looks good. This looks good here. Yeah, this is fine. Really, at this point, like, your graph editor looks really nice. As long as it's doing the things you want it to and you're thinking through everything. So, for example, I'm noticing there's a little break right here in the curve. Well, if that's there for a reason, that is good. If it's just there randomly, that's when you have to go in and kind of think through it. But that's not a problem. Graph editors don't have to be smooth. Oftentimes they look better when they're not. The one is Z location and the other scale. Okay, yeah, so for the scale, the big thing I would just watch is when it reaches the top. Just watch that scale and track it visually more than worrying about the graph editor, and then see what happens with the graph editor. Demble, yes, when a character is jumping through the air, their translate Y will have a curve to it, but their forward translation will not. So, for example, let's say you've got your TY and your translate Z. So TY is up and down. This is going to have a nice curve like this, parabolic curve. Your translate Z, the moment they leave the ground, so this is the forward motion, it'll be a straight line. There's nothing slowing them down unless they have a cape or a parachute or something. So, yeah, you're not going to have to worry too much about that. Now we can adjust it to make it a little bit more dynamic, but it's not imperative that we have too much of a change. A lot of people, when they have a character jump, they'll actually slow them down quite a bit by the end. Or worse is if a character jumps and starts slow and then speeds up and slows down. This is not right, because if they're in the air, there's nothing that's propelling them forward unless they have a jetpack. Yeah, this is typically the most correct for a jump. This is okay. Not as long as it's just a little bit, it's okay. Or else it'll just feel like the character's hitting like some pudding in the air, which is slowing them down. Let's see. Could you open up the Zelda animation? I could do that in a little bit. The top is the thing in the middle. Okay, yeah. So that up and down curve, that's good. It's really just for me, and I can just show it in here. When I'm working on my curves, so let's go to a different view here. I am thinking of the graph editor. I am thinking of what the graph editor means and trying to keep it clean. But this does not mean that every curve has to be perfect. So for example, this is my translate Y here. Now keep in mind this is not polished, so like this I would not keep. This is going to have to be cleaned up right there. So it'll be more like that. So it is nice and smooth. There's a few little, like right there, there's a little pop there that I don't like. But in this case, this curve is going to be nice and smooth. Now, I do have my rotations of the hips. So this is the rotate Z. Look at this curve. If I was trying to smooth this out, I would do this. Get that out of there and make a nice clean curve. Ooh, isn't that nice and pretty? Except that's not the curve I want in this case. I actually want a bump in there. I want the hip to hit the ground, and as it reacts, there's almost this shake in the hip, which happens a lot with more exaggerated walks. Like especially if you're more energetic, because you're taking more weight and more energy into your hips, there's going to be a shake in there. It's not all going to be just smooth and buttery. There's going to be a little bit more, what would be the right word? Imperfections to the walk. So in this case, I actually want that in there. So don't worry about trying to make a perfect smooth curve. If anything, that's going to lead you down a path, which it did for me when I first started, a path of animations that look okay, but also meh, where it's just not that interesting. Instead, think of what your curves need. If they need to be smooth at that point, make them smooth. If they need to be linear, make them linear. If they need to have all sorts of shakes and wiggles and pops and like harsh changes of direction, that's fine. The graph editor is just a tool to make the animation on screen look appealing. So I hope that makes sense. So for just as another example here, like if she was to be hit in the hips and actually have like an impact, then I would want to break this and have something like this happen, which is not a nice clean curve, but it would fit the action that would be happening to her. So why not animate directly in the graph editor? I actually animate quite a bit in the graph editor. So in the last stream when I was working on the Zelda rig, most of the animation I was doing was actually in the graph editor. I wasn't actually posing it out in there. It's just different workflows. Sometimes I use pose to pose, in which case I'll work visually. Other times, especially for more subtle shots, I work in the graph editor. It just depends on what you're doing. So yeah. Now the thing with the graph editor is it's good for certain things, but if you're doing really cartoony animation, then it's not quite as good, because cartoony animation is very graphical. It is not about how your curves look, it's just graphic shapes. So if you look at something like Hotel Transylvania, I doubt that they're using the graph editor other than for some polishing stuff and just to make sure things aren't breaking. The rest is just posing it out, and it's almost like drawing it out, because there's no way you can get cartoony poses like that extreme without just working on the pose. If you're just working in the graph editor and just doing basically this, and you just got the graph editor full screen and nothing else, you're not going to get a good pose in the end. For something like a walk, it works because a walk is very mechanical, which is what the graph editor is good for. Actually thought that most curves have to be fluent no matter what. No, not at all. Most curves will be fluent, usually, but as long as it looks good on screen, that's the important bit. And the graph editor is there to help us diagnose when something isn't looking quite right. It's like, well, let's see what the curves are doing. And we can see, oh wait, there's a bounce when there shouldn't be, or there may be no bounce where there should be. So things like that. I dropped a supplementary constraint tutorial for whoever was having a hard time picking up or setting down objects in the general chat Discord. Nice. Oh, it's in the Discord, I think, Shiri. So if you check out the Pratt Bros Discord, which should be linked down below there, or I can give a link here, you should find that link that Gimbal Locks posted. So now that Shiri's back, let's actually do this constraint thing. So in this case, you've got a hand, a flower, and then the petal alone. So let's actually do that, and then there we go. So in this case, we have a series of events. We have the petal that has to stick to the flower, then it has to go to the hand, then it has to be free. Hey Artstuff, hello! How's it going? So in this case, what we need is some constraints to connect this flower petal to these different things at different times, which can be very daunting because there's a lot of things we have to deal with. So this will depend on how you've rigged the flower petal, but basically what I would do, let me think this through. Okay. So what I would do is, first of all, I would have a control for the flower petal. This way I can control the flower petal with that versus the geometry. So to connect all of this, this would technically be free right now. There's no constraints, there's nothing. At the very end of the shot, as the petal is falling, basically we're just turning off all constraints and it should be free. So there really should just be two constraints. One would be to the flower, or specifically to this part over here, the center, and then one to the hand. So to create this, what I would do is, how would I do this? I would take a locator. Now this is assuming that the flower hasn't been rigged with the petal in place here. But have a locator for each of these, which you parent to the hand. So this is parent to the flower. And then you take your flower petal and you would constrain it to both of these. So these are both parent constraints. Now, the tricky part with this is that you need to be able to switch between the two constraints. Now, to do that, let's open up our scene here. Well, let me stop playing this because it's going to take up my CPU there. Let's create some polygons here. So I want to create a cube, and let's do a sphere and a cylinder. So just 3 different objects. And for this, let's just turn off two-sided lighting for, or sorry, not two-sided. I want to turn off flat shade. There we go. So, take our objects, move them out. Oops, make sure I don't select my root control for the character. That would be bad. Okay. So we've got our objects here. Would you create different controls for the pedal in each extreme to rotate with a pivot point in different places? No, I would use the locator to rotate them. So wherever the locator, when I constrain it to the object, the locator is going to act as the control for the pedal. Now you could add extra layers in there, but for like keeping it as basic as possible, that locator would act like that. So let's actually create some locators here just to kind of replicate this as close as possible. So we've got a situation like this. So to create this, I'm going to take the locators. Oh, there's a fire alarm again. Take our toasters on the fritz. It keeps, like, it doesn't burn the toast, but every time, I guess there must be something like burnt inside. It just sets off the fire alarms. Oh, the ants! The ants are getting us! The flamethrower! It's true, it's all true. The flamethrower actually came in. Oh my god. So, with these, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to parent the locators to the objects. So this way I can move these objects, the locators move with them, but I can still animate the locators, and this will allow me to have something to control with. So, now I need to create my constraints. So, with constraints, let's open my constraint menu. I'm going to use just parent constraints. The first is going to be constraining the box here to the locator, or the box control if it had one. So I'll select the locator, then the box, create a parent constraint. Let's add that in, and then do it for the other one. So what this has done is it's created 2 locator weights right in here. And this is where you're going to be animating this. So normally I would recommend people animate using the blend parent attribute. Oops, and I'm not on my base animation layer. So if I key this, for example, you'll see I have my blend parent layer. This is the on-off switch, which allows me to move the object and have no influence from the constraints. So usually I recommend people use that. If you are switching from constraints, you cannot use this. Well, you can, but you can't use it to switch. It's just a global on-off switch. Instead, you will have to animate the weight attributes in the constraints itself. So the way I would do this is right now, the weight is even for both objects. So you'll notice that it's actually moving halfway between both, like this. If I wanted to focus on just one object, so locator 1 is the one with the cylinder, locator 2 is the one with the sphere. Let's not have it follow the sphere. I'll set that weight to 0, and now it follows that. If I set it the other way, so 0 on there, this would actually turn the constraints off completely, same as using the blend parent, and then turn the weight on there. Now it follows the sphere and not this. So this is where you would animate that switch going on and off. So you would just create one frame where it is following the sphere in this case, or in your case, it'll be following the flower itself. Then you would animate being picked by the hand, and then you'd switch the weights. And then when it's dropped, you would either use the blend parent to turn off all the constraints globally, or you could just turn off the weights in here. They'll do the same thing. So that's how you animate the constraints, switching between different objects. I made a key before I constrained, so Maya created a switch. Then it has a meaning where the key... does it has a meaning where the key on the timeline? I'm not sure what you mean by that. So when you see this blend parent, basically it means that the object has two things. It has a constraint, which could control it, or it has keyframe information, an actual key, which could control it. And when you're using the blend parent, you're switching whether Maya is using the constraint or it's using the key. Now, if the blend parent is on, if it has a key on that frame, it doesn't really matter. So for example, right now blend parent is on, and I could take this cube and add a bunch of keys everywhere, like this. But really, those keys are not going to be factored into anything because the blend parent is on. But if I then turn blend parent off, now those keys are being used, at least on that frame. So in this case, it's not going to work for what you need it to, because as you're switching objects and following different objects, this is just turning whether it's following the keyed object, or sorry, whether it's following the keys on the object or whether it's following the constraints. When you're switching constraints, it's all constraint information. So the blend parent is only going, yep, constraints, we're following those. Good to go. Which in most cases is fine. But since this case we want to turn off one and then pick up another, you need to animate these down here. Now the problem with these is that they are not part of the main object. So this is where you have to be careful when you're retiming things and when you're selecting your objects and stuff. Because if I set keys, let's go to frame 64 here. I'm going to set keys on here. You'll see there's the keys right there. I'll deselect and then reselect. No keys on frame 64. That's because these attributes here do not belong to the cube. They're showing up here, but this is like a shortcut to see those attributes. These attributes actually belong to the constraint node, which is under the cube right here. So if I select that, now we see those keys. So when you want to retime or adjust your keys, you need to make sure to select that, or at least click into the constraint here, which will then kind of highlight those keys in there. If I just click and drag, you'll see there's that key on 64 is not there on the timeline. So be very careful of that. This is why I'm not a fan of using these as my global like on-off switches, because in most cases it's very easy to forget to select them and retime things. So if I just need something on-off, I'll use the blend parent instead. If I have to go deeper, then I'll use this, and then it'll work. So hopefully that helps. I missed the locator tutorial. All I did was parent the locators to these objects and then constrained the object to them. So yeah, hopefully that helps. So you should just have to have two constraints here and then switch between them and then just turn it off afterwards. So with that, unless there's other questions, we can probably jump into the animation here. So it's already been an hour and we haven't even jumped to animation. Oh yeah, you did have one. I saw it in the corner of my eye. Let me go up to it. Okay. I work on the graph editor to polish my scenes, but oftentimes I miss pops and stuffs, where there's pops where the graph editor is actually easing out correctly. How do you approach to have the minimum pops possible, or at least to perceive it in order to have great arcs and spacing? That is a good question. So sometimes you will look at your graph editor and it looks absolutely perfect, but there's still pops or wiggles or something going wrong in your shot. Now, there's a few reasons for this. One of the most common is gimbal lock of some kind. So your curves are looking good, but then things are popping and wiggling and the arcs are just a mess. That's usually a culprit. It is a good name. It comes up often. So that could be an issue. In that case, it's just going to be brute forcing it or finding some way to get rid of the gimbal lock. So for example, if you're having it on an FK arm, switch the arm to IK and snap it back into the same positions. And now you'll get rid of that gimbal lock and you can animate nice and smooth. Your graph editor will look good. The other thing that can often happen is counter animation. So you're animating some, let's say the hips, and your curves look good, but there's a pop in the body. It could be that there's a key somewhere else on another control somewhere that is affecting it. So if ever I have that, I do a quick hunt to see if there's anything going on. So for example, just on the Zelda animation here, as we were working on the feet, there was a moment where the feet were starting to slide sideways. And I quickly looked at my curves and it's like, there's nothing happening there. And what it was that I had accidentally just nudged the root control here, and it was creating a little slight sideways shift. So it could be something like that, where even without realizing, you might have just tweaked one control somewhere else that is now adding a pop to another part. This is especially true in the spine, because the spine, there's a lot of controls that can go into this, and it can be very easy to accidentally select one and then just twitch it to the point where your other curves are looking perfect, but there's just this one hidden curve. So with that, let's say you've figured, like, yes, I don't have any animation on any other things. It's not a gimbal lock issue. And there's still a pop. Sometimes those happen. In those cases, I just track the arcs visually, and I make sure that I put the arcs where I want them to be. This was something that happened in the Zelda staff spin animation. When I was animating the staff and the hands, I would get my curves perfect, but the animation looked less good because of it. There was like these just pops or wiggles that it just wasn't great. So what I ended up doing was I just marked out where exactly I wanted the hips to be and just matched it. And regardless of what the graph editor says, I know visually that is what I'm getting and what I want. So it is common. It happens on some rigs more than others. I've had rigs where it's just, for some reason, the way the graph editor and the things move, the graph editor doesn't give you a perfect representation of that movement. In which case, I just track it by eye. And you can use things like the editable motion trails. So for example, if you have Animbot, there's a good one in here. So I could track Zelda's head right there, see what kind of arc I'm getting, which definitely looks like it might need a little cleanup right there. Kind of flattening out right there. You could use Maya's editable motion trails, or oftentimes when I have like a little pop like that, I will just track what I want the arc to be. So you could use something like Epic Pen or the grease pencil tool, mark out on your screen where you want your arc to be and just match the body part to it. So hopefully that answers your question in some way. Yeah, it's really just kind of being aware that the graph editor is not perfect. This is one of the reasons why I use the graph editor all the time. I am a huge fan of the graph editor, but I never let it animate for me. I'm using it as a tool to kind of get an idea of what's happening. But if any time the graph editor is saying, oh, things are perfect, and I can obviously see they're not, then I'm dropping the graph editor and I'm just putting it where I want to be. So it's this balance. And it is just a tool like anything else, really. If it's not helping me, I'm going to go to a different tool. So, yeah. And Artorius, hello! So, I guess with that, unless there's any other questions I missed, which is very likely that I did. If I did, feel free to ask again. I'm just checking the chat. Well, I heard of a problem that the rig starts doing weird stuff when the root bone is too far away. Anything to say about that? I've never experienced that at all. So maybe for video game animation, that could be a thing. But for things like this, I've never had a problem. Sometimes I've had the roots just stay way away. Yeah, I would assume that's more of a video game thing. In which case, you usually want the root bone to stay pretty close to the rig, or else when you bring into the game engine, things can look really funky. And Sarah, hello! So, with that, see, I can't afford a live because of poor connection. Is it possible to have past episodes of streams re-uploaded? I am working on that. It'll take me a long time. At this point, we have, well, let me double check here. Where are you? Let's see, just opening up my Twitch folder, which is all the recordings. I do keep all the recordings, so right there. So we've got 270 items in here, all the way back to the very first stream way back in 2017. Jeez. Which you can even see when the I just found an image online just to put up there. It was a nice little Zelda image, and then we switched to that blue. How many gigs? How many gigs is this? Oh geez, it's 1 terabyte. So I'm at 1060 gigs, or no, actually 1170 gigs. So YouTube unfortunately would not be easier because of the amount of editing I have to do. Re-uploading them is not a problem, it's just getting them in a cycle. But uploading them to YouTube would actually be a much bigger hassle. So Yeah, it takes a lot more editing to get them up on there. Uh, so trying to get like basically a terabyte of information back up it just takes time. That's the big thing. Uh, um, so it is my plan. I'm actually uploading some previous streams today. I've got 3 of them uploaded now, which will be released once I'm done streaming here. I'll just have to like publish them, and then I've got another 1 or 2 that I want to upload for people, and I'm just gonna slowly build it up. I'm gonna start with the things that people want to see again, because well, those are gonna be the most useful for people, and then we'll get to the just random streams afterwards. And if you want to edit them all, yeah, exactly. When you start considering you have to watch them all and then cut the beginning and the end and then make sure there's no copyrighted music, and then the dance series, yeah, I definitely need to do that. So it's just a lot of time with editing. Yeah, 4 hours, yeah, that would be the average stream length. So I'm not looking forward to the day that I just go, you know what, let's start editing all of these. Mostly because I'm going to have to look back at all the old footage and go, ugh, why did I do that? Why was I animating this? Even in 3 years, like I look back on some of the things that I've animated, and it's like, I could have done that better now. It could have been better. I could have pushed that pose a little bit more. It never goes away. But let's see. We're over an hour in and I haven't animated a thing yet. So let me actually start doing that. Or else I'll never get into it. So, let's start with the... Let's see. Let's start with the Zelda walk. There's less stuff on hers that need to be fixed. So, the first thing that I was noticing in my play blasts was that the hips were popping down. Now, actually, just another note is if the stream isn't playing back correctly for anyone, if you go in the bottom right corner, you should be able to lower the quality, which may help a little. I know it doesn't solve the problem for everyone, but right now it is at 60 frames per second. So if you lower that, it could help. So my translate Y of the hips is not working quite the way I want it to. So make sure I'm on the right layer. There we go. So part of that is that it feels like it's being knocked down. As she's walking, I was kind of watching her head level, and it feels like instead of kind of dropping naturally, she is being hit downwards, and I can see that happening right here. This isn't really easing nearly enough, and it creates this feeling that she is just kind of slamming down. So I want to try and ease that a little bit more. So let's ease this, soften that curve just a little bit more versus having this steep curve. It'll add less texture to the walk in terms of making the character feel like, what would be the right word? Well, the spacing won't be quite as extreme, but that's kind of the point here, is I want that spacing to be a little bit softer right through here. So it comes down a little bit more smoothly. And then I'm just adding another key right in here, just to help me control that curve. And there we go. So something a little bit more like that. So maybe exaggerate that a little bit more. And this is where, for example, I was talking about before, the graph editor is just a tool. I'm using this graph editor right now because I know that my curves are working in this case. They are doing what I want them to do. If I had run into a situation where my graph editor was causing problems for me here, I would be posing all of this out manually. Let's kind of lower this just a little bit more. I'm also taking this chance as I am fixing issues, I'm also polishing. So this is one of the things that I like to do when I'm working is I don't consider one phase of the animation as the kind of be-all end-all. So what that means for me is, for example, when I'm blocking, I'm not just doing blocking. When I'm splining, I'm not just doing splining. It's good to learn like that and to kind of start that way because it simplifies your life a lot. But once you have more experience, you can start to merge certain things. So for example, as I'm doing this, I am polishing. When I was blocking the Zelda shot, I was also splining it. I was doing both phases kind of at the same time. This is because I've been doing it for a long time and I know what I want to have done in the shot. This is something I would never have done when I first started because I would not have known what to do. But it just helps me speed up my workflow just a little bit more. Just get that kind of double whammy in there. So that should fix the translate Y. Now, when I'm looking at my list, I'd never cross out the object yet. So, for example, I have the translate Y pops down slightly after the contacts. I don't cross that out yet because I don't know if it's fixed. It might not be. I might have made it worse. Who knows? I just mark it down that I've finished it. And then when I play Blast, I'm going to look back at my list here and then cross them out then. This way I know that now it is fixed. If I cross it out now, I'm just going to have to rewrite it later if I didn't do it right. How do you do the grade previous modification curve? That is a buffer curve. So if ever you want to see how the curve used to look, just select your curve and hit this button right here. This is the buffer curve. It saves the curve, a snapshot of the curve into the memory. To view that, go to View, Show Buffer Curves. And now, if ever I make a change, I can see where the curve used to be. This makes it very easy because now I can kind of compare what my curve was and make sure I'm not just going right back into it. But more than that, it's almost like a super undo button. Because if ever I go, you know, I just messed up this curve and oh shoot, I ran out of undos or I totally missed out on my undos, there's the button right beside this, Swap Buffer Curves. Now, boop, I hit that, it switches it, and now the curve I had made becomes the buffer curve. So it just swaps them. This is also good for comparing your animation. So I could go, do I like this one or this one? This one or this one? And I can play it back. Then when I go, you know, this is the version I like, or, you know, let's undo and go back to this. I swap it and then buffer it again. Now I've got that curve saved and ready to keep on working. It's basically an ultimate undo button. I always have buffer curves like active, and usually at the start of a shot I'll just select everything and buffer them. Yeah, it's like being an optometrist. Yeah, exactly. It's just like, and a lot of times it's just that. It's like, do I like this or do I like this? And it's a tiny little change and you're just kind of squinting at the screen hoping that you're seeing a change and you're not fooling yourself. So the next thing, oh yes, you're right, water time. I added an emote to the stream just for people to remind me to drink because I'm so bad at it. It's terrible. I need to add an emote for sleep. Nap time. If it wasn't against this Twitch terms of service, then we'd have the nap one. Yes, for eating. I need like a snack. A good snack that's not allowed in the microphone, not chips or something like that. that I can just munch on. Get some food in there. Not sticky. Get some peanut butter. There we go. Okay, so my next note here was that the hips pop on the contact. Now this was from the front view. Gummy bears. Gummy bears would be a good. Cake. Oh, cake would be good. Now I'm hungry. So, right here, there's a pop in the hips. You can see it right there. And if I go into the front view, this is where I was really seeing it. You can see it right there. And then right here, same thing. Right there. So, I have a feeling this is being caused by the feet. Where the feet, suddenly over straighten and come down very quickly. So, I just need to adjust some spacing on the feet here, most likely. To kind of avoid that sudden drop in the foot. And I can do this in a couple of ways. The first way that I want to try out and actually I just realized I never cleaned up these feet properly. So it's not really a problem, but I'm not a fan of this. You'll notice that as the foot comes over here, there's two controls being used. There's this one, which is rotating the foot upwards. This is not the contact frame, this is the frame before. And there's also this one, which is rotating the foot upwards. This means I'm going to be animating two controls just to get this angle of the foot correct. I am not a fan of that. Sometimes it works out, most of the time it doesn't. So I'm just going to zero that out there and instead polish this up with this one control. So this is going to change the feet quite a bit in some of the poses before, because you can see just how much counter animation was going on now. And then the other thing I'm going to do, which is going to help the knee, is I'm going to flatten out the foot a little bit so that the most extreme rotation pose is the contact as it comes up. What this allows me to do is move the foot forward a little bit more without having too much of a hitch. So let's move that forward just a little bit more. So it kind of eases just the one frame before the ground. And now if we look at that hip here, it solves that little pop. Now there is another pop upwards here that's happening. And I think that's because my translate Y is going up too high. There's still something. Let's check that foot. Okay, another thing I can double check is my translate X. This is the side-to-side motion of the foot, and I think I might actually want to adjust this. I just have it coming fast into there. I might want to ease that in. Okay. Okay, I thought this music was Crash Bandicoot. It's got a very unique style to it. I think that got the majority of it. There's still a little pop in there. Let's see what I can do to bring that back. Bring the foot back just makes it worse. Bringing it up will make it worse. I wonder if I'm getting a... No, the leg isn't overstretching. But at this point, it's kind of just a, what's the right word I'm looking for? Like almost a puzzle of trying to figure out what curve is causing this issue in the leg. Now, it is not imperative that I fix this, because the body does have little jerks and little hitches. That is fine. As long as it's not so bad that it is causing the foot to feel broken, I guess you could say. I wonder, just as a test, I'm going to start bringing that foot back a little sooner here. A little bit more like that. Just to make sure that the translate X is not causing huge issue. Okay. A little better. I don't know if it's a huge amount. Let's actually just bring that back up here. Something like that, and ease that up. A little more. I want to just compare. Yeah, not enough that I want to ruin the whole arc that I'd gotten in the foot. Now, one thing I do want to fix right here is the heel cutting through the ground. That is definitely something that should not be happening. The foot should stay in the air, not cut through the ground. This is the nice thing with having a front view like this, is you can always easily see how much of lift you have off the ground there. Okay, and this is a little too much. There we go. Ease that in. Let's see, one question. You said a few live ago you are Canadian. That means you speak French? Yes, I do. I am French Canadian. I actually spoke French before I spoke English. Although it probably doesn't sound like it now. My French is so underused. I don't get a chance to speak it very often. But yeah, I do speak French. Now, to be specific, the French I speak is it's a little bit more of a joual type French, not the French, as in from France. And that is just, for anyone who doesn't know, joual is basically a Canadian French, specifically from kind of the French Native American population that kind of developed into its own thing. A French Canadian as well? Oh, that's awesome! So I'm assuming you probably grew up with a lot of like very buttery food, the buttery awesome goodness that French food tends to have. Hey, we were talking about Dragon Quest music earlier, and it's actually playing! Yay! I love Dragon Quest music. Another game series that I never really played, but boy oh boy do I love the music. Let's see. Grew up in Toronto, but my family is from there. Oh, nice. Or Tio. I'm assuming that's Toronto. Yes, this music is so good. Toronto, yes, nice. I've never been to Toronto. I've been to Quebec. I've been other places. Toronto, never got a chance. I was actually hoping to get to Toronto a few years ago for two things. The first was going to be the Zelda Symphony of the Goddess tour, which I've never had a chance to get to, unfortunately. One day, maybe. And then the other one was the Game Grumps live. But this ticket sold out like in two seconds. So that should fix that hip issue there. It is odd how when you live in an area, it's so easy not to take advantage of the things that everyone else kind of takes, like, or would want to go see. There are areas like where I live. I had family come over and visit, and we took them around like the countryside here because they come from Quebec, and it's like, I've lived here my whole life, and there's things that we brought them to, and it's like, this exists here? How the heck did this happen? When did this, like, what? And it's like, how can I live in an area for so many years and not know these things exist? You just get so used to living in an area. I am still in Canada right now. Are you not going crazy with all these views at the same time? Do you mean like going out and traveling to places? I don't know how I would do in a place like Toronto or like one of those busy places. I live out in the country. There's not much here. I will honestly say that there's not much. In the viewport. No, actually, the main thing is I'm only ever focusing on one at a time. But by having multiple open, what it allows me to do is make sure that I am... Am I getting counter animation here? No. By having multiple open like this, it forces me, or not forces, it allows me to easily jump between two views. So I'm looking at the side to look at the spacing from the front, and then, from the side, and then I look here, look at my spacing there, make sure that's not doing anything it shouldn't. So I am kind of just watching different things at the same time, not watching all of them at the same time. And this is one of the big things that I wish I could show you guys. I actually I was having a conversation with Sir Wade about this, about getting motion trackers so that you guys could see what we're looking at, and he actually got one, which was really cool. And I was waiting for his kind of feedback on it to see if I should get one too, and I never actually did look into it in the end. But that way you guys can see what I'm looking at while I'm animating. So you can see when I'm looking at the graph editor versus what I'm looking at on the feet. So you can see, eye tracker. So you guys, it actually tracks the movements of my eyes and puts a cursor, just like the mouse cursor, on the screen. So you can see what I'm looking at. This way, as I'm working, you can see, oh, I'm focusing on the graph editor. I'm focusing on the foot. And for example, right now, as I'm moving this, I'm not looking at the graph editor as I'm moving these. I'm looking at the viewport. So it's little things like that of showing the focus. So for example, I'm moving my cursor in the top viewport right here, but I'm looking in the bottom left viewport. Excuse me. Can't you use the eye trackers that work with your camera? Yeah, but you have to get special software for that, I think. And my camera, it won't. I don't think it'll work with this camera, which is the nice high quality one. I've got webcams, but I don't know if they're good enough. We can distract you and look at the chat. I'm trying to stay on target here, but I do want to keep up with the chat. I need moderators. Someone who can just watch the chat for me and let me know when something important comes up. Like a question, so I don't miss those. The big thing is I just don't want to miss questions. Let's tone that down just a little bit here. Make sure this arc makes sense. So this is where the graph editor is going to help me. Right now that arc is not making sense in the foot. It should just kind of come in nice and smoothly like that. Now we get a nice swoop in the foot. Now I can just watch that front view. Make sure the foot has a little bit of a gap between the ground. Doesn't cut into the ground. And then there we go. And then let's add just a little rotation here. Would you animate someone stumbling at some point? I could. I was thinking of doing a more action scene at some point in the future. So I could try to add some stumbling into that. Okay. Yeah, that's better. Okay, now let's watch that hip. This is the main area that I was trying to fix here. Okay, yeah, so I got the pop out of that hip. There's still a little bit in this step right here. Like there's just a little bit of a pop in there, but that's much better. So let me write that down. So I fixed the hip pops on the contact, but in doing so, I actually fixed another thing, which is the foot arcs. And let's actually skip ahead here. This is actually a little bit further, but I can add this in without affecting anything. I want to add in some foot slides to this. So for me, foot slides are very important because they help mimic how feet actually work. If you watch the heel right now, as the heel contacts the ground, it comes in and it is perfectly pixel locked to that moment. That is not how feet work. If you're walking on gravel, if you're working on a polished floor, there's no way your foot is hitting the ground and then locking as if it is glued and nailed in place right there. So I want to fix that and give a more realistic feeling to that. A fight would be interesting to animate. I was thinking a conflict of some sort, maybe a character running away from a creature, because I do want to animate a creature again. It's been too long. So maybe something like that. When you polish, do you focus on a few frames at a time and polish the entire body? Or polish each control over the full animation? Usually I'll do sections and do the whole body. That way I bring everything up kind of together. The reason for this is that if you focus on one thing, for example, I just focus on the feet for the whole shot, maybe it's the 600 frame shot. If suddenly I realize that, oops, there was something in the hips that now means I have to change something on the feet, I've just wasted my time. So instead I do chunks. So in this case, it's not going to be in chunks because it's so short that I am polishing the whole thing all together. But for example, the Zelda animation where she's spinning the staff, I was doing in sections. Sometimes it'll be in like 20 frame sections or 30 frame sections, or usually for me, I like to do in moments. So like do a flip, and then when the character finishes the flip, that's a whole moment there. When they stand up, that's a moment. So I just kind of, when they finish a beat of the scene, and I try to get that beat to feel good, and then I move on to the next one. The reason I'm not a fan of like 20 frames, 20 frames, 20 frames is sometimes that 20 frame range might stop like mid-action on something. So I'm polishing half an action, and if you're just polishing half an action, you don't know if you're polishing it right because maybe the next half changes something. And again, now you're repolishing stuff. So I like to take beats. I find it's a little bit more a little bit more useful. Let's see. How was Animal Crossing yesterday? I did not end up playing Animal Crossing. I did not have. Well, let me put it this way before anyone says that I said I was going to play Animal Crossing. I did play video games yesterday, and I watched a lot of movies yesterday. I watched a bunch of cartoons. The Steven Universe movie, which was amazing. I've got the soundtrack right after watching it. It's so good. And then I did a little work, but nothing major. It was just some prep work, like it's just some quick images and stuff, thumbnails. So nothing major. Basically, I sat for an hour after the stream, and then I played games and relaxed. I ended up playing, what's it called? Way Forward? No. It's an indie game. It kind of looks like an old Sierra game. And I actually got to finish it. I finished the whole game in that day. I wasn't playing for that long, but it's not a very long game. So that was kind of Way Forward. Yeah, Way Forward is the company. What was it? Oh, and I don't have my Switch with me here. I brought it upstairs. It was really good. I really liked it. So yeah, that was my day. Was mostly focusing on just getting that me time in there. Okay, so let's get this slip in place. So mostly this is going to be the forward translation. I agree. That is the appropriate GIF. No, it wasn't a Shantae game, although I do have to play those. I want to study them for the animation. I actually have friends who work on the Shantae games now, which is so weird to think. So, what was it? Okay, I'm gonna have to look this up because I'm gonna be curious about this so I find it. Is it The Way? Yeah, The Way. I knew it had The Way in it, so this one. So it's got this like really cool old vibe to it. I really liked it. It's mostly like a puzzle / platformer, which I grew up with. Like it made me think of, if any of you have played it, The Dig from Steven Spielberg, which is an awesome video game. If you haven't played it, it's a really cool it's a really cool story in there. But yeah, it was really cool. Forward question: where are the ants now? At this moment, there are 0 ants, which in a way is more worrying than if I could see them. I have no idea where they are. Last I saw it crawled under my tablet, and now it's gone. So again, I keep getting so distracted. I want to create a little foot slip here. So to do that, what I did was I just went a few frames forward to when I want the slip to end, because I don't want to have to reanimate all of these foot contacts and worry about spacing. So this is rotate Y. Just have a little bit like that. I could probably pull out one more frame. So we just get that. And you can see on the side view here, or sorry, the front view, if you look at that edge of the foot, what it creates is the feeling that instead of locking and the foot just being a static piece of geometry, it creates that squishy feeling of the foot, like almost like the shoe is being pressed into and the toes are pushing out of the leather ever so slightly, and it softens that foot contact just pressed into and the toes are pushing out of the leather ever so slightly, and it softens that foot contact just a little bit. And Japan, thank you so much for the subscription. I really appreciate that. I've got to do the arm motion a little higher. I keep like I really appreciate that. I've got to do the arm motion a little higher. I keep like doing it and I keep forgetting my camera's not low enough. Gotta get that dance. At some point I'm gonna have to dance it myself. I dance it myself. I need to get a standing desk. That is my goal, just so I can do that. The other thing I can do here is I can exaggerate the rotate. The other thing I can do here is I can exaggerate the rotate Z. So as the foot's coming down, instead of coming down evenly, that edge of the foot leads. So we have edge of the foot leads. So I can't get it so that it mutes the music of the stream and then plays the audio for you guys. So you just get like 2 songs playing at once, which is very, very annoying. But I so want to do that. So that way everyone can listen to the epic awesomeness that is that theme song. There we go. So we've got that foot squish in there. Let's do the other one. And you can see it's not big changes. And if I don't like talk my way through it, it doesn't take long to do. So, for example, this is the foot contact right here. So I know that I need to go a few frames forward. 1, 2, 3. We'll say around there. Let's key. Bring this back. Back, I say. Too much. Something like that is good. Let's select the rotate on this. So let's do rotate Y first. Hey, Vespo, thank you so much for the follow. Really appreciate that. Okay. So let's add a little bit of rotation in there. Maybe a little bit more here as well. Probably exaggerate that a little bit. So now the foot comes down and we get a little bit of that almost slight rotation to the toes. It just makes it a little bit more dynamic. Like that. Let's push our rotate Z. The Z is where you can see the Canadian come out. Although, to be fair, there's a lot of countries that say Z, so I can't take credit for it. Oh, take care, Sarah. Have a great day or night. It's like here. Oh, take care, Tiki, as well. Okay, so that's done. Okay, what's next here? This is where it's nice to have your notes and have them numbered, because instead of going, okay, let's take a look at my whole shot and see what I can fix, I know exactly what I have to do, which is there's a but I think it might be my rotate Z is a little too extreme. Sorry, I went quiet. I'm trying to find my rotate Y. This is the rotate Z. Oh no, that control is the rotate X. Okay, yeah. So my rotate X operation on some poses. Hey, we were just talking about Shantae. Yeah, right here. The little offset in the foot, so I'll have to check my translate Y on frame 9. Jake Kaufman is probably one of my favorite game composers. Modern game composers. He's really good. Good. Now I am also noticing the knee kind of pops right there and locks. So how do I want to fix that? Let's take that foot rotation and just see if we can bump that up a little bit higher. I might just need to offset that one frame. Might just need to offset that one frame. Voila. So that was easy. Next, foot arcs I already fixed. Feet cutting into the ground, fix that. So a lot feet cutting into the ground, fix that. So a lot of times when I'm fixing one thing, I might even fix like a few others and then, hey, done. Ooh, Din Din, awesome. Hope you have a great meal. Ooh, Din Din, awesome. Hope you have a great meal. Not similar, but I should say in sync. So I was thinking of trying to offset the arms. Take all of this. Okay. And maybe we can see it better here. Actually, let's do the front view. I think that'll avoid any perspective shift. So if you watch the rotation of the body versus the rotation of the arms, watch what happens. Right now, as her body rotates, her arms kind of swing in time. Very close. Is making it so that the body starts to lead a little bit more and creates the feeling that the arms have a little bit more weight to them. Now, if I go too far, let's push this even more. What'll happen is it creates this disconnect where, let's push this even more. What'll happen is it creates this disconnect where like pieces of rubber attached to her body and they're just swinging wildly and there's no muscles anymore. So I want to keep it from going that far, but just enough that we get that feeling of weight in the body. That the body is kind of dragging the arms back and forth a little bit more. Maybe one frame. Since I already built offsets into the arms, I don't have to go too far. No, I think I like 2 frames. Let me try 3 just to see. Maybe we can find a happy medium. And BMC, the Lost Timeline, thank you so much for the follow. Nah, I think 2 was the sweet spot. There's just something about it. I really like this song. Got a good beat to it. Okay, and the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my rotate X of the body here and see if I can exaggerate this a little bit more. It's just feeling a little... I don't want to say mechanical, but a little even. I want to see if I can push the holds a little bit more. Just make it a little bit more visually interesting. So it'll add more weight to the body. Instead of just going like this, back and forth, there's going to be a little bit more hold. Instead of just going like this, back and forth, there's going to be a little bit more hold. Yep, spine 1, spine 2. Okay. So, with the spine controls, instead of having them all just do the same thing all together like this creates kind of a unrealistic effect, because while our spine does not move all this creates kind of a unrealistic effect, because while our spine does not move all exactly the same from top to bottom, it also feels a little stiff when everything rotates together. So first thing I can do, let's have the lower spine. So first thing I can do, let's have the lower spine. So now we get this slight offset in all the spine controls. And let's just do a pre-infinity cycle here. And it's not going to be much. We're not going to see this visually. It's not like, wow, it pops out and so much better. But it does give just this slight kind of, it connects the lower spine to the hips a little bit more and adds just a little bit of rotation in there. How do you get the names to show up? You just go to View, Curve Name, and just turn on Always or Active Only. Stacked View. So, we've got that. Okay. Now, if I wanted to, I could also tone down the curves. So have the lower spine a little bit bigger and the upper spine a little bit smaller. So, for example, have the lower spine a little bit bigger and the upper spine a little bit smaller. So for example, let's do times equals 0.25 or 1.25 to scale that curve just a little bit more. And then we'll take spine 1, or sorry, spine 2, this is the top one, and we'll just do times equals, this is the top one, and we'll just do times equals 0.75. So now let's actually just go to our regular view. You can see how those curves, which were all exactly the same before, now just go to our regular view. You can see how those curves, which were all exactly the same before, now the lower spine is rotating more. It's also rotating first. And as it goes up the spine, we get less rotation. Not much, but enough. Up the spine, we get less rotation. Not much, but enough that there's a variation in that spine. It's not just one connected piece that is moving all at the same time in a boring way. This is why I personally like to work piece that is moving all at the same time in a boring way. This is why I personally like to work with a spine, all three attributes all at the same time, because in the end I can get this beautiful curve that is nice and polished very quickly. But with very little work. So that can be that can be a huge kind of bonus when you're trying to get these curves to do what you want. These curves to do what you want. So I'm just kind of cleaning up the tangents here, make sure everything's working the way I want it to. Up the tangents here, make sure everything's working the way I want it to. So something like that. And now we have a nice polished spine. Again, and now we have a nice polished spine. Again, we get a little bit of an offset in the side to side so that the movement this way just has a little bit more of a flow to it. Knee pops, which I think I might have cleaned most of them. So it's going to be really just looking for any minor tweaks we can do. Now knee pops are off. Now knee pops are often the most annoying thing to try and fix in a walk, but I'm surprised. I think I've got almost no knee pops with her. In a walk, but I'm surprised. I think I've got almost no knee pops with her. Like there's a little bit of a wiggle I'm noticing right around. Like there's a little bit of a wiggle I'm noticing right around. Oh, thanks. I'm glad you like the walk cycle. So something like that. Then here and here. These keys should not be exactly the same. That makes no sense. Keys should not be exactly the same. That makes no sense. Nope, all good. If anything, I think my translate Y out of the foot could be a little lower right here. Just a scooch. There we go. There we go. So, with this doesn't mean that I'm quite done with those. This doesn't mean that I'm quite done with those knees, though. Another pass I like to do with the knees is the knee PD pass. Normally, I try to not touch these. Normally, I try to not touch these side motion on these. And it's going to be very slight. I don't need to see the names. It's going to be very slight, but it's just making sure that, for example, the knees point to where the toes that, for example, the knees point to where the toes. So in this case, not too much. I think Link is going to end up having more foot motion because he is in what I feel looks good. So something like that, maybe. There we go. The knees are polished. Simple. There we go. Get that nice Zelda. Do you think weighted tangents is better than non-weighted? I think whatever you feel most comfortable with is the right one for you. Thing with both tangent types, there's just different workflows to it. So use the one that you feel comfortable with. I like weighted tangents because it allows me to just shape these without having to add in more keys. But with that said, I always do try to add more keys afterwards. So in this case, if I accidentally lost this, oops, not a big deal. But oops, not a big deal. But keep in mind that if suddenly, let's say this is our curve, if I accidentally hit the tangent button, I lose all of it. So be very careful when you're using weighted tangents not to over rely on them. I use them as a way to quickly build it and then add keys to lock it in place. And this comes from when I was a student, I would only work in weighted tangents, and I did a whole assignment where I just cleaned up all my curves. I polished everything just with weighted tangents because, well, what an amazing discovery I've found. Until I came back to my shot one day and I realized that I must have accidentally hit the spline button, the auto tangent button, and all the work I had done was gone. So if I had been using non-weighted, I wouldn't have been able to get as much like detail in just with the curves or with the tangents themselves. And what works for you. So hopefully that kind of answers your question. Now, before I go on to Link here, because I do want to show a little bit of extra polishy stuff here, I just want to add a little bit of bounce to this kind of pouch here, and maybe some offset in the rotation so it swings. And I just want to show how we would approach that, and then we can come back to some polishy stuff if we have time. I was hoping to do a lot more, but we ended up doing a lot of demos at the beginning of the year. Some rotations. It's not going to be much, just a little bit of hair motion there. So how do I do this? Well, I could just animate it by hand and get it in that way. Definitely possible, but that's a lot of work, and it's a lot of like frame by frame. Okay, should it drag here? Should it drop there? Should it drop there? I want to get a head start on this. I want it to be so that I can at least have something to work from. All I need to do is figure out which attributes from other controls I can use and use them. So for example, for the bounce is really affected by the up and down of the body. So if I take my translate Y curve of the body here, which I just noticed it has a little bit of a wiggle right there. Let's clean that up. A wiggle right there. Let's clean that up. So let's do it 5 times for now. See how that feels. So this way I can really visually see that bounce. She's dropping down. So if she's dropping down right here, that pouch should be coming up. So I'm just going to offset my curve so that it's up. And kind of and kind of so what I'm doing is I'm just trying to look at when certain moments will happen. So she hits the ground here. This is the certain moments will happen. So she hits the ground here. This is the kind of down of the hips. So the pouch should definitely be like sinking down right around here. Like sinking down right around here. Okay, perfect. Probably one frame off. Right there. Okay, now as she comes down, then down, then right here on the down before coming back up right there. So just offset some curves. There's no knees per se on a bag, so it's going to come in here and be a little bit of a harsher hit. I can also maybe add in just a tiny bounce in here, something like that. We're barely going to feel it, but it'll be in there. It's just a little shake in there where we want it. It doesn't take long to do. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to move this up so that the lowest point is at a point where the move this up so that the lowest point is at a point where the bag isn't cutting into her hips. And then I'm just going to scale it from there. So now I'm actually going to, so now we have the bag. Hey, iAnimate, hello. So I can probably hold it longer down. Get rid of one key and just move that forward 2. Get rid of that, 2 frames. Something like that. Something like that. So there we go. So I used that curve of the hips moving up and like so. So with this, the pouch now moves up and down. Now it's hard. So with this, the pouch now moves up and down. Now it's hard to see. So if ever you have trouble kind of seeing these curves, one thing I will do is I'll just scale the values. I'll just scale the values. So let's do it 5 times for now. See how that feels. So this way I can really visually see that bounce. Let's see, maybe I can get this view to work. Yeah, nah, not really. Okay. Okay. It's going to be hard to see. So what I can do is just offset this curve. So let's find a part in the I can do is just offset this curve. So let's find a part in the walk here that's easy to see what's happening. So for example, right here, right there probably. So even that should be pretty much about right. So now, as she goes through, it bounces down as her hips come down, the pouch bounces down as her hips come down, the pouch, or as she's coming up, the pouch sinks back down. She comes up, pouch settles. As she comes down, right here, she comes up, pouch settles. As she comes down, right here, it starts to drag. And then it should maybe hold a little longer. Maybe hold a little longer. So this is where, again, it's not that I'm just copying it and leaving it alone, and my camera just froze. Camera freeze. Camera freeze. So I'm not leaving the curve just as is and that's it. I am trying to visualize what's going to happen here and using the curve as a starting point. And the reason I scaled it up is it's just going to make it a lot easier to see how that motion works with the body. So I'm really exaggerating that. Really exaggerating that. Okay, so that timing feels good there. Now if I want to, once it comes down here, it's not going to ease in like the hips. There's no something like that. Well, what that means is so as it kind of hits, there's this little shake to the bag. Just one frame, but it's in there. Okay. So let's say That's good. We have that go to the highest point. See how much I want this to drag up. And maybe like right around there. Now we have this overlap in there. Probably a little too much still. I think I... So... There we go. So I used that curve of the hips moving up and down. And now we've got that bag bouncing. Very slight. I could probably tone it down a little bit more. Doesn't need to be that much. So let's go with that. Okay. Now, I want to add a little sway to that. Well, that sway is going to come from the rotation of the hips. So, let's find that control. Boop. It's going to be the rotate X. Copy that. Boop. Go back to the pouch. Find out which rotation I need for this. So this is going to be the rotate X this way. I could probably also add a little bit on the rotate Y. We'll see. So let's take our rotate X first. Paste that in. And it might look very strange at first. Yeah, definitely very strange. I wish I could copy curves more when I was doing my aim assignments. It is very useful. The big thing is learning when and where it works best. So that you're saving time and not just copying it over only to... what would be the right word? To waste time, like trying to get it all working. That's the hardest point. So basically I want to find when the hips are starting to really travel across, and that should be the point where the bag is dragging. So for example here, right here, no, actually let's go on this leg. So drag. Yeah, I think that's close. I think it might be one more frame. So I'm just kind of watching the bag and seeing if I can feel that motion of the hips dragging that bag across. I think something like that is good. There's a little bit of an offset. Oh, take care, Gimbal Locks. Hopefully I'll be able to jump into one of your streams. I keep missing them. I just catch like the tail end. And for anyone who doesn't know, Gimbal Locks has an amazing Twitch stream. Definitely check him out. So something like that I think is good. Okay, now you can see how exaggerated this is. That's fine. The reason I want to exaggerate it is now I'm going to be going into my rotate Y, pasting the same curve, and now I'm going to look at both of them, and I'm going to try and offset them ever so slightly from each other. What this is going to allow me to do is just get a little bit more depth into this rotation. So instead of just one rotation happening, now we're working with multiple, which just adds that extra layer of depth to that motion in there. Very slight, but it's in there. Okay. Now, as you can see, this is way too much. So once we get our rotations in place, I think right around there is good enough. What I can do is just scale both of these down. The rotate Y is probably going to be a little smaller. So something like that. And let's actually make sure I cycle this properly. That'll help. There we go. It's just a small amount, but now we've got just a little bit of a sway to that pouch. It's probably way too much, actually. Let's tone this down. Whoop. Even that. Let's just add a tiny bit in there. I just want enough that it feels alive, not so much that it feels like it's going to fall off her belt. There we go. Done. Polished. Okay. So with that, we could probably just start working on Link. Or, do I want to do Link now? I don't know if we'll have time to finish all of the stuff I want to do for him. Or should I just finish up some stuff on Zelda? You know, just because I kind of want to animate the hair. At least the two bangs in the front here. Just because I think that would be fun. So, basically I want to animate these two controls here. So, the way I'm going to try and figure this out here. Did I graduate from AIM in 2012? I started in 2011. So I think it was 2012 that I graduated. Yeah, I think so. 2012 or 2013, I forget. Depends on which time of the year it was. I'm pretty sure it was 2012 though. And then I think the graduation might have been in... Oh man, now I forget. Well, I've got... it's going to take too long to look up pictures. I was going to look up the pictures and find the date. But I think, yeah, it was 2012. So, let's see. So let me grab just this hair control for now. These two. Set a key for the cycle. Let's make sure we actually cycle it. Cycle with offset. Curve, cycle with offset. Check my email too because I remember you and your brother. Not sure if we were in the same class year though. Might have been. We also took workshops for a long time afterwards, so we were still in AM for a while, even into 2013. We did have two classes graduate on the summer of 2012. Yeah, what was your graduation in the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco? Or was it the park graduation? It was in San Francisco. It was the park. Okay, so I think that was the graduation before ours. So I think that must mean we must have been in 2013 then. Because ours was... It was going to be the park, but then they decided to do the theater instead. Just because it was such a big group. So right now the hair is feeling very stiff, which is not fun. I want to add some nice dynamic feeling to it. Let's actually show the NURBS curves. Okay. So the way I'm going to do this is I just want to take the top control and I want to just animate the sway on it, like the pendulum, basically. Now, I could try to copy curves here, but I think I'm just going to animate it by hand and see what we get. And I'm focusing only on the side-to-side motion first. And the main thing I look for is the extremes. So as the head drags, I want this to pull back, kind of stay there. As it changes direction, it should swing outwards. Oh, my camera froze again. No! Yep, there we go. I need like an alarm to tell me when my camera freezes. So let's not have this go too far yet. Hair is pretty heavy. So one of the big things I want to avoid is the hair just feeling like it is sorry, what I'm looking for. Like it is a solid. I want that hair to really feel fluid. And one thing that's going to help me animate this, honestly, is making sure that my curves, or my keys I should say, are not starting on frame 1. This is kind of the benefit of working in a layered animation. Frame 1 and frame 29, because they're kind of like these contact points where there's not much motion in there, these are going to be hard to visualize what is going on for me. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to delete the key on frame 1, move the hair over, starting on frame 5, move it over, set a new key on frame 29, and then move it back to frame 5. So now I've still got that cycle, except now I am starting it and ending it with a 5-frame offset right from the start. This way I can much more easily see what is going on, because the main motion that's happening is starting as it's kind of a big motion here. If they haven't shown, let's see. Yeah, exactly. And these are a bunch of adventurers, like Link and Zelda. They're not going around taking baths and showers at every opportunity. It's going to be sleeping in the mud, just living rough day to day. So this swing out here is a little too much. Let's kind of pull that back there. So even that should be close to enough. It's a little dizzying looking at it so close. Okay. So let's try to pendulum it a little bit more. So what I'm trying to do is I want to push the spacing of this to just be a little bit more interesting, so that it's not just swaying back and forth, but it has a little bit more weight to it. Because hair is heavy, as much as it might not seem like it. So for example here, as she stops, That hair should probably swing out just a little faster. Now, there is another cool way that you can animate hair and things like that, which is to just make a very simple joint chain or object that you constrain to the head, and then just do a physics simulation on it. See how that moves, and then copy the motion. Now, I might do that for Link. The reason I'm not going to do it for Zelda here is because I'm not sure how well the physics simulation is going to work with these rigs. Most of the time it's not a problem, but you never know when physics can kind of just break things. So I don't want to get into a situation like that. Okay. Too late. Something like that, possibly. Just very simple. I'll do it on the Link one. I don't see why it would break because these rigs are very nice and light. So it's not like they're going to be taxing the CPU or anything. So I'm just going to test something. Maybe too much. There you go. I think that's about right. So this is one thing I like about the layered approach is I can easily just offset curves and get it right and get that feeling I want. Once I get the spacing I want, it's just a matter of offsetting, which is very nice. I think right around here actually felt really nice. Yes, that kind of clinging to the face, the cheek that I want. Right in there. Okay. So, with that, let's copy this curve. And go on to this one. And paste it onto our Rotate Z. Edit. Paste. Now, this is not going to be quite right at the beginning because, well, it's going to be perfectly in sync with the piece on top of it. So instead I'm going to offset it a couple of frames. So now it actually drags compared to the top one, maybe even one more. And now we've got that. This very epic music for hair swaying. And Yumi, thank you so much for the follow. Let's see. I'm interested to see if this joint chain method. It is really cool because it simplifies a lot of like physicsy stuff. For example, if ever you're doing ragdolls, you can make a very simple ragdoll rig, throw it across the room in Maya, see how it kind of topples and does that, and then kind of just match it to your character. It is so fast, exactly. Now, the main reason I don't... what would be the right... I don't show the layered method too often to people is, or at least to new students, is that you do have to have an understanding of body mechanics before you can make it work. If you just jump right into the layered method, with nothing else and just go, yep, this is the way I'm animating, it can work. I'm not saying don't try it, but be aware that you are trying to mimic things that are happening, and without understanding how the body mechanics would work, you could very easily run into situations that are just not working physically in your character. There. Add that rotation in there. Just bump it up. Okay, I think I want a little bit more hang time. Like right in here. So maybe let's offset that one more frame. See how that feels. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, exactly. That was the same thing for me. It's like, ooh, the music does match. I was never a fan of the layered method before, and then one day I just started animating, and I just kind of fell into it by accident. I started just animating and like, oh, I should just offset these keys and offset, and it's like, oh, I'm animating in a layered way. Oh, okay, I guess I'm doing this now. Is the ragdoll thing a bullet thing? You can do it with bullet. You can do it with even end cloth. End cloth works very well. Basically, it's just creating something that can simulate with the same amount of weight or physics that you want. So, let's say that's what we want for the hair. Now, it's a little too much. Hair is a little heavier than this, but I can tone it down afterwards. Let me actually save, because I haven't saved at all this session. But I want to take this now, and let's see if this will work. I'm going to use the Animbot tool. Oh, no, that's not what I want. I just lost all my animation. I'm going to take these and mirror it over to the other side. Okay, perfect. Now, actually, before I mirror it, I should finish animating it. So I've got the side-to-side motion there, which suddenly got lost. What the heck? Oh. I had a key in there. That would explain it. Okay. So we've got that. But we also need to do the side-to-side from the... I shouldn't say the side-to-side, the front to back of the hair. Because the hair doesn't just stay straight like this. Now for a walk, there's not going to be too much. It's not like we're walking in the wind, doing a Naruto run, and the hair is swinging back. Again, walks are slow. But I could maybe add a little bit of kind of rotation in there, just to kind of have it bob with the character. So I think for that, what I can do is I can take my rotation X of the head. This is the kind of forward bob of the head here. The overlap. I'm just going to see if I can copy this. So this is going to be the rotate Y of the hair. And once again, whenever I'm doing overlap, one thing I really like to do is I just scale the curves up to crazy amounts. This forces me to properly get that overlap working versus trying to see the tiny little details and hoping that they turn out. That's not fun. So this is going to be hard to see because we are moving with the character. Now what I could do to make this a little easier for myself is I could create a new camera. Let's create an orthographic camera. So that's going to be a flat 2D camera. Let's go in here. Find out where that camera is. Boop. Rotate it onto the other side of the character. Like so. Let's frame it up. Something like that. And then I'm just going to parent it to her head. I could constrain it, but by parenting it, hopefully. Let's see if it worked. Yeah, there we go. Now I can still move it around and focus on things. But we now get that. So with this, I can very easily see how that overlap is working. And actually, let me undo that. I'm going to take this, go to Edit, Unparent. Okay. And I'm actually going to parent it to her hips. The reason for this is I want to see that forward nod of the character. And if I constrain it or parent it to the head, we're not going to see that. Let's see if we can spot it now. Yeah, there we go. So now we get that. You can see how much of a nod there is in here. That's better. So let's go in here, see what we can do with that rotation. So first I need to just get in the right spot. So as she comes back up, or as her head comes down, I want that hair to flick forward, I guess. Let's see how that feels. Too soon. Now it's going to look very weird. I might not even keep this in. This is just an experiment. And this is the nice thing about the layered method, is it's very easy to experiment in these ways. To just kind of see if adding something is going to enhance or just take away from a shot. Okay. Let's simplify this curve. Actually, no. Let me redo this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this, and instead of taking the forward motion, which isn't going to add too much anyway, I'm going to take it from the side to side motion of the head, the rotate Y of the head. That should actually get me a nicer look to it. So as she's doing this, the hair is going to have a little bit of sway this way. Let's copy that curve instead. See how that feels. And this goes on the rotate Y as well. Okay. Interesting. That's better. Let's make it bigger. Bigger. Okay, it's a better rotation already. So as her head comes back this way, so her head is going screen left right now, doing this. So her hair would drag forward ever so slightly. Okay. this should be working. We'll see. Now, if I want to make sure that I'm not looking at the wrong rotations here, what I can do is take both my rotate Y and rotate Z. Or sorry, just the rotate Z. I didn't do the X yet. And I'm just going to mute this curve. What this does is it makes sure that that curve is not actually animated anymore. And now I can focus on just the Y and see if that works. There you go. I think this is close. Yeah. So what I'm looking at is not the hair. The hair is misleading in this case. What I'm looking at is the box. This control curve here. I'm watching the shape of it. The 3D form of it and how that rotates. That's going to tell me if the hair is in the right spot. Okay, there we go. So now I can just tone this down quite a bit. Just enough that we get a little sway in there. Let's unmute this one. Unmute. There we go. Now we've got that sway in there. Once again, I can copy this curve. Let's go to the end control here, rotate Y, and paste that in. Boop. Let's offset a couple of frames. Maybe 3. Scale that up a little bit because the end of the hair is going to sway a lot more than the top or something like that. There we go. Now I've got that hair swaying in place. Now, there is something else I can try to add in if I wanted to, but I think for this part of the hair, we're good. So, let's take that hair now that we've finished this. Let's save again, just to be sure. So take that, and I'm going to flip it, mirror it onto the other side. And did that work? No. Okay, take this one. Interesting. Added a key in here on me. Which one? Which one of you has a key? You can see that there's a key by the curve here. You have a key. This key. Boop. Get rid of that. Don't need you sticking around. Okay. Let's try this again. Now I could just copy the curves, but I want to see if the mirror tool will work. Hey! Hopefully it did. Did it? No, it did not. Weird. For some reason, the Animbot mirror tool just doesn't want to work for me here. That's fine. I can just copy curves. It's not that hard. So, let's take our rotate Y. Copy that. Oops, wrong copy. Edit copy here. Did you try the snapshot the hair in the default pose before trying the mirror? I did not. Actually, that would probably be a good thing to do. I actually have the default pose still in here. So let me mute this layer here, and it's right here on... Where is it? Oh no. Oh yeah, there you go. Mute the layer. So, haha, we've got the default pose. So let's try that. So where is the snapshot? I always forget where it is. It's... Let's see. I'll just try selecting all the controls. Oop. Okay. Let's do that snapshot again. Also, you're using the infinity curve, so it may struggle to find a start frame and end frame. Yeah, that's true. That could be it, definitely. That's a good point. I didn't even think about that. So, let's see if this will work now. So, mirror. Yeah. So, if I wanted to do this, if it is the start and end frame, there is a way I could do this, which is just to bake out these curves and then just make a new cycle without offsets. The problem with that is I don't really want to do that. I want to keep the offsets. So yeah, exactly. Faster animate by hand, or just copy the curves by hand. So I know, like, for example, rotate Z, just Control C, rotate Z. Let's get rid of that. Paste. There we go. Rotate Y. Control C. This is the only time you can use Control C, Control V really in Maya, is for copying curves in the graph editor. I don't use it that often, but you can do it. Now, which curve is the one I don't need? Rotate Y. Okay, it's the one at the end. This one. Get out of there. Boop. Probably don't need that one either. Okay. So those are those two. Let's take this. Control C. Control V. Get rid of that first key. Control C. Such weird music today. Usually there's like a theme for the day. Today it's just like randomness. Okay. Let's see. Then you get less twin mirroredness. Yes, exactly. So this is one thing here where I've copied the animation over, and at this point, let's look at it from the front. It's going to be exactly the same, like that. Which, yay, we've got hair. But the problem is it is mirrored perfectly. I hate this. I am not a fan of ever getting hair. Like, hair would not work like this. It's impossible. It is perfectly mirrored in the most horrible way. So what I'm just going to do is add some variation to this hair. I might offset a curve here and there. I might just adjust my keys. Maybe one side is just not as, doesn't move as much as the other. Just little changes can make a big difference. So let's do that there. Same thing here. And just scale that down. But even something like that, they're very similar still, but there's like a 1 frame offset between them now, and some of the keys are slightly different. It just breaks it up a little bit at least. I might even tone it down some more still, just to make it feel like one is like kind of heavier maybe. Oh yeah, the anim layers. Yeah. So there we go. We've got that hair in place. Now, with this, it's still a little too much, but I'm gonna keep it exaggerated for now. We could keep going with some of this. So for example, I could add some bob to the hair. So as she's moving up and down, we just get this little rotation in here, ever so slight. So once again, I'm going to take my translate Y for this, although let's take... Yeah, let's take this rotation from the pouch. This might actually work out better. And I'm just going to add it to the hair. These 3 controls. So I'm looking for the rotate Z on all of these. So paste that. There we go. There's our cycle. And actually, is that the right key? No. There you go. That's better. Oh no. I have to mute the music. Ah. I love Portal music, but the problem is it keeps getting flagged on the stream. And there's always Portal music. It always has to play. I love it, but... And Noelia, hello! So let's actually go to our side view here. You know, I'm going to unparent this camera because I'm getting extra rotations that I don't want. So let's fix this rotation here. This should just be -90 in X, I think, and 0 and 0. No, wait. I always forget which axes. There you go. 90 on this one too. Nope. We'll get it eventually. There we go. Okay. So the problem was that because I constrained or parented it to the hips, I had forgotten I had animated some attributes on there. Some of the rotation attributes. It was rotating with the character. So instead, I'm just going to do a point constraint to the hips. Or actually, let's do it this way. So we have a little bit of control. So I'm going to create a locator. And I'm just going to create a point constraint from the hips to the locator. So constrain point. So this just constrains the translations. And I'm just going to do a connection in the Z axis. So what this means is that the locator can still move up and down, in and out, but it's just going to follow the character's speed. Then with that, I can take my camera and parent it to the locator. So now the camera is just going to move side to side with the locator, but because the locator is not also getting any rotations, now I should get a nice clean camera view. Making it a little bit more. There we go. That's better. That's easier to see. So now we've got some little head bob. Just a little bit in the hair there. Now, I think that bounce in the hair is just a little too much. So let's take those controls and just tone these down. It's actually a good amount too, it feels. I think I can offset it just a little bit though. It almost feels like it's needs to come forward 2 frames. Somewhere around there. Yeah. That's better. So something like that. And then let's tone it down just a bit so we just get a little feeling in there. And there we go. And we could keep going with this. Like, there's no end to how much we can just kind of add a few extra rotations in there. And I should bring the music back. We can just go all out with this hair. I was thinking maybe adding some translate or some of this curve here. Let's copy this and put it into the translate Y of the hair. And then just offset it maybe 1 frame. So what this is going to do is add a little kind of stretch to the hair. Let's make it a little bit bigger so we can see it happening. Now I think this is going the wrong way. Oh wait, did I not apply it to all the curves? Let me undo. Make sure I take the translate Y of all of these, edit, paste. Interesting. Okay. Let's reselect all of these. Oh, wait. Because I don't have a key on everything. Translate Y. Edit. Paste. Interesting. Why is this one flat? There we go. Layer that view out. Okay. Let's try pasting it again on these. Paste. Okay, interesting. Let's do one at a time then. Paste. And Amon Sama, thank you so much for the follow. This one's really big for some reason. Okay. There we go. We've got all of them in place now. So let's take a look at this. What is... Oh, that is not going in the right direction. That is not going in the direction I thought it was going to go. I wanted this. Which axis is this? Oh, this is the world axis. Okay, no wonder. I want this on the X. Okay. That would explain it. So let's take all this. Take our translate Y. Just get rid of it. Flip. Go into our translate X instead. Okay. Get rid of any extra keys. So that's on 3, so the next cycle should be on 31. We'll just get rid of all this. Blip. Done. Okay. That should be in the right place this time. There we go. Now, the problem is it's kind of going backwards. So I could offset it, or I can just scale it and flip it in this case. I'm going to set the value to -1, flip it, and now we get something like that. Let's offset 1 frame, and then just scale it really low, because we don't want the hair to feel like it's stretching. This is basically just trying to create a little bit of a bounce effect in the hair. So almost like there's maybe like slight curls in the hair that are stretching and then kind of settling back into place. Let's exaggerate this just a bit so we can see it. Maybe this way. Yeah, just like that. Very slight. So just something like that. It doesn't add a lot in terms of actual like, oh wow, look at that hair move, isn't it gorgeous? No. But what it'll help create is the feeling that the hair is not just a solid. And let's see, where's my locators? Oop. Just kind of give a little subtle bounce, even from a distance. It basically, we're trying to find ways to avoid pixel death in things, where things are just frozen in place and don't have any motion whatsoever. So there we go. I think I could maybe add a little bit in the side to side as well, in the hair on the back. It's not going to have much because it's so thick, but I could maybe take the curve from this. So let's take our rotate Z, copy this. Now, which controls do I want here? This is going to be the rotate Y. This is the rotate. Okay, yeah, rotate Y. Let's take all of these, rotate Y, and do one at a time. Edit, paste. Rotate Y, edit, paste. Rotate Y, edit, paste. There we go. Now they're all moving together. Is it going the right direction though? Yeah. I think. I don't know. Hard to say. That's better, I think. So just building in that sway of the hair. Let's tone it down. Pokemon music. Straight to the heart. There we go. Now if I wanted to, I could just take these as well and maybe add like an offset to them. So maybe in the center we just offset that rotation just a little bit. Maybe this side just offset it a little bit as well. So that way they're not all perfectly in sync. I could scale it up as well and whatnot, but at this point, that's pretty much it. There we go. So with that, she's pretty much all polished up and ready to go. I could add a little bit on the ears. I was thinking of that earlier, but I don't know how bouncy I want those ears to be. Ears are pretty stiff, it's cartilage, so it's not like it's going to be bouncing up and down like a spring. Really, I think the next thing would be trying to figure out what accessories I would like to have her have. So this rig is really cool. It comes with a lot of accessories. So for example, one of the ones I was thinking, because it's just a really cool piece of material, is adding in her cloak here. I think that would be really cool to have in there, but that's going to be a whole thing just to animate this properly, and get that swaying in there nice. But I think it would be really cool to have in there, and kind of reacting with the arms. Now with Link, I will probably be adding the Master Sword to the back. At least the Master Sword, maybe a shield, we'll see. But for her, I think that's pretty much it for now until I add the cape. I could maybe add the Sheikah Slate. That would be a fun thing to have kind of bouncing on her hip. Maybe. I wonder if I could just take the rotations I have for this and apply them. Super quick. So rotate Z, paste. Oh, where'd it go? Oh wait, yeah, that's why. I forgot. There's keys on this, so it actually turned the thing off. There we go. And then the rotate X, let's copy that. Okay. And then rotate Y. Then I just need to take all of these here, cycle them. Let's see how that feels. Let's turn off locators as well. Boop. Okay. Not quite. So I'm gonna have to animate this a little differently. Mostly because it's going to be bouncing against her leg. So for example, I'd rotate. Oh wait, no, that's why. It's rotate X on this one. My rotate X and rotate Z are opposite. So let's copy that. Edit, paste. This is why you always double check your curves. Don't just assume. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to animate this on a separate kind of pass. Because it's further on the front of the hip, it's interacting with the leg, and these rotations just aren't gonna give me what I want. But I can do that at another time. At this point, I'll probably just take my translate X of the hips to kind of get me started, so I get the kind of sway of it, and then just kind of key in when the leg kind of comes in and bumps it. But it's basically similar as what I was doing. Copy curves, figure out where I can adjust and kind of push interaction, and that's pretty much it. And Isaac, thank you so much for the follow. So I think with that, I was hoping to do both characters today, but with all the demos we did at the start of the stream, it kind of went a little longer than I had hoped. But yeah, her walk is pretty much polished. At this point, really all that I would have left to do is to save it out. So what I would end up doing is just open up Studio Library. So let me do that here. Now, I'll polish up a little bit on my own after this. This is just going to be more of the same. This always takes a while to open. Okay. So, let's say this was done. We're all happy with it. Good, yay! I'm going to take all the controls and then just come in here. I'm going to go to New, Animation. And I'll need to select my frame range. So this is where I would probably bake out all my animation first so that I have a proper cycle with no offsets anymore. But I would just set the range. So it'd be from frame 1, and my cycle is from frame 1 to frame 29. So, oops, I didn't want to dock that. Yeah, come out there. So we've got that. You can capture the window, which is always a little bit of a pain to get the framing quite right, but then you'd have your cycle. So I would set this to my 29 frame cycle, and I wonder if I can do it from here. Yeah. So let's actually show the NURB surfaces. I don't need this anymore. That was for a failed experiment. So let's just kind of frame this up here. Get her nice and centered. I might just have to move Link a little bit. Just a little scooch over to the side. Okay. Let's see. There we go. So now I've got a walk cycle right in here. So I could put Zelda walk cycle. Save that. Oh, and make sure I have all my controls selected again. That would help. And not the geometry. So like so. Save. Oh wait, is it because I selected that cube? Now I'm gonna have to remake it. Oh, you're gonna make me do that, aren't you? Okay, try that again. Without deselecting things this time. Okay. Yay, there you go. So there we go. Now we have our default pose. So if ever I need to animate a new scene, I've got our pose ready to go. And if ever I need to start animating a new scene and I need her to start walking, poof, done. And with this, you can really start to just build up a whole library of assets. You could have hand poses, hand motions, all sorts of things. If you're ever working on a bigger project, this can save a lot of time in the long run. But for now, I think that's about it.